What's up, gentlemen? This is Rising Phoenix Podcast, a podcast about how to rise up after your divorce. I'm your host, divorce coach, Michael Rhodes. Let's get into it. Joining me today is Sheila Robinson-Kiss. Sheila, why don't you just jump right into it, and why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'll be brief because I want to jump into our content too. So I'm a mom. I am a lover of my Yorkie, Gizmo. I'm a mental health educator, 28 years in the field. And I do a lot of work nationally and internationally around mental health programs and resilience. And I really love to talk about strategy of what you can do because we all have a lot to say, but can you give me some useful tips? So that's where I like to keep my focus.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I agree. I mean, that's kind of way I approach what I do is I get really smart people to tell me how to deal with the difficulties that we face, obviously, during a divorce. And so let's jump into, I found you, I believe it was Psychology Today.
Okay.
It was a blog post about how rejection is very, very painful. And I don't remember the exact title, but it was around rejection. And so let's talk about that. Why is rejection, particularly romantic rejection, so painful?
A couple reasons. I think one of the primary being with a rejection that's in an arena of romance and relationship, there's generally expectation tied to it. We script a lot of this before we even, make the approach or dive into the relationship. So there's this ongoing script in our minds. It may not match, particularly when there's a rejection happens. It may not match what's going on with this other person. And then I want to say something that we don't talk about it enough. The history that we bring, what we have experienced, what we've gone through, that will impact, particularly if it's unchecked. We haven't taken a deep dive into what makes us tick, what our triggers are, and someone touches on that, and it's off to the races. So it's a mix, but those are really a couple things to think about.
Yeah, it can almost be compounded, right? Like if you didn't deal with a rejection in the past or the hurt of it, and then you get into something else and then go through it again, it's almost like it's a piling on in a way, right?
It can be a massive piling on, and what I explain it this way: whatever you don't process, there's a great book, The Body Keeps Score. If whatever you don't process, it is recorded in your mind, body, and spirit is unfinished business. I've had the experience, and maybe you have too, of sitting across from someone, maybe they're triggered, and okay, this is an overreaction, or who are you responding to? Because all I did was make a statement, and really the person is responding to their brother or their mother. It's unresolved. So the person you're dealing with gets the brunt of that.
Isn't that in a lot of ways I mean, I know it is, but isn't it really unfair to that, especially in a relationship, in a romantic relationship? Isn't it really unfair to bring that stuff and to unload on that other person when they had nothing to do with it?
I think it is not only unfair. I think there are very real consequences into a person's life who is operating that way. And that's why it's so important. I mean, we talk about heal yourself. Right. If there's an issue, face it, but we rarely talk about the benefits of doing that. And the benefits of doing that work, taking a deep dive into this is who I am, this is my history, this is how I'm managing myself. It's just a better way to live. It's a happier way to live. And you can take people and circumstances at face value, and you're not processing everything through that lens of pain or dysfunction. So there are benefits to diving into this work, this topic.
So let's talk about what, because I'm fascinated by the brain and how it works, and you mentioned The Body Keeps the Score. I love that book.
Yes.
So let's talk about what does how is the brain affected, or what does rejection do to the brain?
So I'm going to answer the question, but I'm going to curve around just a
Sure.
little bit and start with the brain is one thing, but we have a lot of power in how we're programming our experience. So I want to highlight that we're always responding to what we're telling ourselves is happening. So if you reject me, I approach you and you reject me, Sheila, nice person, but whatever the case may be, and I tell myself, oh, I'm unlovable.
Right.
Here we go again.
Right.
I'm completely unlovable. That message that I'll send to myself,
Mm.
every single time I send that self-aware message, there's a physiological response.
Yeah.
We can talk about these stress hormones, cortisol, norepinephrine. There's a physiological chemical response with every message. On the flip side, if I say to myself, hey, cool, if you're not digging me and it's not going to work, I'd rather find out day one than get 2 months into this. Or you know what? Man's rejection, my protection. It's a different response, and it's a different chemical response in the brain.
Very true. Yeah.
So we know it goes back to being able to drill down your narrative in real time. And the more skill you gain in that area, it really does. Again, I like to stay focused on benefits.
Right.
That means, wow, maybe I got derailed, but it was for a day instead of 2 years.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing.
Yeah. Man, you're hitting on so many points that I wholeheartedly believe in. Narrative is one of those. What are you telling yourself about yourself? And that can affect how you view things, how you see things, how you experience things. So, like you said, a rejection can be viewed differently depending on the story you're telling yourself about yourself. If that story is "I'm a terrible person," that rejection is simply confirmation. Yep, see, there it is again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
But
it's
even
really
more, and even to really hit this point home, understand that you are programming the physiological response.
yeah,
People really need to get that. However I'm talking to myself, I'm literally programming how I'm going to move through the day, how I'm going to handle a similar situation if it happens down the road. So that it's a nuanced area here, but it's one that is just worth so much attention, because when a person connects to that, it's like, wow, I really have some power in how I experience this. Great.
it brings up a question just popped in my head, and I struggle with this a little bit in terms of I think you need a tribe of people, a therapist, a coach. I think you need help to get through things like this. But uh, I caution very strongly, and we kind of talked about this about not bringing your stuff to the next one. But I caution guys very strongly that they seem to look for that help in the next partner, probably before they're ready.
Yes.
But
Yes.
but there is, I think, or at least I've been told, I'm not sure I agree with this though. I have been told by other therapists and stuff that it's also beneficial to have a partner to help you um, through these things. And I can't say I agree, but I guess there is sort of a point where you get to a point that you're okay, whatever that means, and you're ready for something, but you still need healing within a relationship. I don't know.
I,
What's your take on that?
I'm so glad. This is awesome that you're bringing this out. I am in the firm camp of disagreement
Yeah.
with the advice of, you're meeting someone, it's unfolding.
Right.
There's a time and a place. I'm not saying you hide what you're going through. I'm saying that for the average person, and this, again, 28 years, I've sat with
Hmm.
thousands of people who've gone through divorce, men, women. I mean, and
Yeah.
I'm telling you how that plays.
Yeah.
That plays as I'm tired. Like you're cool.
Right.
We're having some fun here. But
Right.
most people, when they're unfolding, um, they're not looking to serve as a pseudo therapist as well. I'm not saying there's not a space for conversation and context, like this is what I've gone through, this is what I'm working on. But 9 times out of 10, a person wants to feel like, you're coming at this and you can see all of me. I'm looking at you, and there's not 3 of us
Right.
here in the room. So I'm in the firm camp that make it your business to find a safe space to process, to work through. And it's a very delicate line when you're entering a new relationship, because I've been on both sides of that.
Sure.
I've, been the person who I hadn't processed, and I overshared, probably scared a few people.
Right.
And then I've been the person on the receiving end, and I'm like, nice guy, but this is like too much. You really need to find someone to talk to. By the way, did you ask anything about me? It's just too much.
Yeah, I think there's also in a parallel sort of conversation about, because I see this a lot in the communities that I'm in. There's a lot of I don't want to say it's misogyny, but it's just maybe it's borderline, but this notion that don't share your feelings with women. And I don't agree with that either. I think obviously deal with your stuff.
Right.
And so it depends on what we're talking about. If you're talking about you had a bad experience at work, or I don't know, something at the house needs fixing, and it's, these struggles that hit us throughout life. I don't think there's anything wrong with sharing about how that affects you. I think it's detrimental to the relationship to share about how you're still hurt by your ex. Does that make
absolutely? Absolutely. And one of the things, when I met my husband, we were in the early stages, that I really admired so much. It was he shared, regarding his divorce, but it was a sharing of, hey, in context, this is what I went through. This is why I'm a stronger person. It was valuable information.
Sure.
But that was that. The rest was, look who's in front of me, and we were able to move powerfully. So I think we're of the same mind on this. Yes, share.
Sure.
Of course, that's the beauty of partnership. But when you're sharing to the point where it is fatiguing and it's pulling down the momentum of the relationship and what you're looking to grow and build, that's an indication you need a resource. You got more processing to do, and let that territory of that relationship honoring that what you're looking to build together. I've seen over and over again that dynamic just blowing up what could have potentially been good, actually, but it just the weight of the past and all of that pulled it down.
Here's a tricky question, and I don't know that there's one answer, but I'd love to get your answer. How do you know when you're ready to dive into another relationship?
Oh, I thank you for this question. I love it. It's an important question. I don't feel that there's kind of some magical checklist that anyone can create. However, a couple things to look for internally. How you are even processing the prospect of getting out there. That's going to give you a lot of information, because if you have this attitude, oh man, I like someone, but gosh, this crap, I don't want, if that's how there, I'm telling you right now, I'm not saying you have to tap dance on the table, but you want a healthy attitude, even approaching, you know what, it's time. I've done some introspection. I feel good. I feel optimistic, because the stench of a bad attitude, it's going to trickle out when you're unfolding, getting to know someone. So attitude is everything. People can feel that energy.
Mm.
Something else to look for when knowing you're ready. So again, having it, I feel, I've processed, I've got a good outlook, and chances are good. Something else to look for is that internal, where are you in terms of, let's call it the fragility level. We can call it fragility level, emotional toughness, however you want to say. If you are just shaking in your boots, I cannot go through one more rejection. You're not ready. You're just not ready. Whereas if you say, you know what, I, I'm not meeting this with expectation, I can handle myself. Who wants a rejection? But you know what? I can handle myself.
Yeah.
That's giving you a sign. It's that confidence.
Yeah.
That confidence is back. If you don't feel that, it's okay to sit it out. I went through a period where I'm like, I just can't.
Yeah.
And that was just a year and some change. I'm like, I just not gonna do that. I just couldn't. My head wasn't in it.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to put someone through it.
Yeah.
And then I think lastly, what you want to look for is your environment. How is my life set up? Is it calm enough to invite someone in? Because you can have, depending on where you are in a divorce, there can be a lot of things going on with children, with your physical environment. You may be acclimated even, to your home. Is there an order to it? Is there a calmness? So it's not kind of like a fly by the seat of your pants energy.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things to look for. And hopefully you're not in the mindset of, I'm just looking for, even if you don't call it a rescue, I need to put someone in this space to function. That's not a good, they're going to feel that.
Yeah.
And you're going to feel it. It is not a good place to, in this space of unfolding and inviting someone into your life. So those are some things to keep in mind.
Well, let's shift the conversation a little bit and talk about we can start with ways to or ways not to, but how do we deal with the pain and rejection? What are some things that we shouldn't do and should do? And we can start with whichever one you want to go
Okay,
with.
sure. I'll blend them a little bit. So I'm going to go back and then progress forward. Going back to the narrative, and this is very intentional work.
Mm-hmm.
I encourage everyone who's listening, literally get yourself a spiral notebook, a pen and pad, and I want you to generate 3 to 4 narratives around rejection, because that's where you go first.
Yeah. 3
or 4 empowered narratives, couple of mine. Man's rejection is God's protection. Another one, thank you so much. I appreciate the rejection because you freed up valuable energy.
Yeah.
I do not, my time is too valuable. If you're not on board, thank you so much. I love to have fun with that. But so many years, it's a part of me now. I just immediately say, woo, on to, whether it's, business contract,
Sure.
family relationships. Thank you.
Yeah.
So drill it down, write it, memorize it with intention. And that's the first place you go. Yeah. Secondly, this is key. Get into a space where your expectations are managed. And I'm going to say, well, Sheila, it's so hard. I just met this amazing person.
Right.
I am excited. Are you saying to just drench that? I'm not saying that. Right. That's the joy of life is, the anticipation, the excitement. I'm saying right next to it, I'm going to allow myself get some little butterflies, always knowing I'm okay, regardless. I'm going to enjoy this, but I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. Right. And so we got to have that as ongoing. And then my next tip, if you think about basketball, football, baseball, the video games that people love. Sure. Why do we love to compete and why do we love sports? Because we can track our success. There's a target, there's a goal. Sure. I like to tell folks, gamify all of this. So for me, where I had to get, because being a sensitive person, rejection was very difficult. Mm-hmm. It was internalized for me. At one point, like every time, I mean, when I say lose traction, it was like caved in
Yeah.
and said, this has to change. And it had to, and it did. And I turned it into a game.
Mm.
Now, how fast? And when that journal that I told you to keep, for years I've been keeping, like, how fast is my turnaround?
Mm.
How quick can I get myself on track? If it's a little derailment, how fast? And I can tell you, over the years, look at it, there were things, it would months, it would
Mm.
just cave me in psychologically.
Yeah.
And to look at that progress, oh my God, it wasn't even an hour.
Mm.
I went into my tools,
Yeah.
have tools to
Yeah.
work with, drill it down. This is real resilience training.
Yeah.
And I like if a person can have some bravado about it. You can have fun with this. Like you think for 1 minute, you certainly will not be the one to put me in this place. Let me, I got to get
Yeah.
myself together.
Yeah.
So, dealing with it in that way, and also taking the knowledge of self,
Mm.
you know what you need to keep your life lifted and balanced. If that's time with your friends, make sure you have that.
Yeah.
If that's, if I experience rejection, I like to take a week or so, or maybe more, to kind of just breathe deeply, nurture myself, know what you need.
Yeah.
And make no apology. It's no one's business. It's not like you're making a
Right.
bulletin board about your process. This
Right.
is beautiful work. It's private work. It's important work. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So when you talk about tools, having tools, what are some of those tools that you can use?
Well, yeah, what I just went over, it's drilling down your narrative,
Mm.
the gamification of it, how fast can I get back on track? I have a process that I use every single day. It's emptying out, and
Mm.
I do it every day, sometimes in the morning, sometimes in the evening. That's where I sit. I just have a little electric candle, and whatever is bothering me, I'm really processing it verbally.
Mm.
It's just in a quiet space in my home. I get it out.
Mm.
And sometimes that empty out session is 5 minutes. I've gone as long as a couple hours, depending on what I'm dealing with. If it's a circumstance, just verbally, I'm getting it out. Sometimes a person has ticked me off, and I just treat it just like they're there in the room. I say everything I need to say. It's just a way to process physically and emotionally. And it really does. It makes a difference. And set something up where you can observe yourself. That's why I just keep a little journal,
Journal.
so I can have these observations. Yeah, I got over that.
Yeah.
There's my evidence. This is something similar. I'll get over this one too. Let's roll.
Yeah.
So it's setting up your life
Yeah.
so you get that traction. And another piece, constantly, podcasts like this, read, renew your spirit daily. Doesn't take an hour, 10 to 15 minutes of positive infusions.
Yeah.
It changes how you function and move through the world.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think whatever content be mindful of the content you consume. I mean, if it's nothing, consume some, but make sure it's healthy and positive, and at least gives you some insight and some information that will be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious. You've been doing this a long time. Excuse me. These tools, and I think I know the answer to this, but these tools that you mentioned, some of these things, these don't discriminate, right? They don't care about gender, right? There's no difference between man and woman in
None,
terms. Yeah.
none whatsoever. One of my former clients was a Marine,
Mm.
and over the years, he'll drop me a line from time to time and says, Sheila, till this day, till this very day, the combination of emptying out, emptying out. I don't even, it's not a traditional journal. It's just 1 or 2 words.
Mm.
I'll write in there a day. I literally have taken everything into me.
Yeah.
And so, like, in real time, I'm using the tools throughout the day, throughout my life. It's made all the difference in how I process circumstance and what happens. It's anyone who wants to embrace the tools
Yeah.
can take them in and run with it. and run with it. And we're living in days and times, because if I can say this, sometimes it's not the divorce itself, because sometimes we're just not made to be together. It's the manner in which people handle themselves. People can be very cruel,
Oh yeah.
and there can be a lot of emotional regression as well. And that can sting depending on what you're dealing with. And so that's a deep part of the recovery. What was done to me, what was said to me. And so we do need to apply these tools for the healing, and that deep rinsing, the power rinse of the soul and psyche.
Yeah, I man, you hit it on the head. So this is my view on some of the cruelty and negativity that could come from the other side. Once they decide that they don't want to be married anymore, you talk about narrative, and I talk about this often. Their narrative changes. You become a different person in their story,
Yes,
and then that person, because you're being left, they have to justify it. So they have to make you
correct.
the villain. They're not going to leave. They're not going to be like, oh, he is just the greatest, and then
Yeah,
leave you. You know, you're
yeah,
oh, you're a terrible person. I
yeah,
don't love you. I
yeah,
never loved you.
yeah.
All these things that get piled on. It sort of compounds. You're not only are you rejected, but you're also being told the reason you're rejected is because
Correct,
you're just not a good person. And
correct.
it's I think, as you said, like it's such a an important and difficult, if I'm being honest, for me, part of the whole process, because I went from I love you, you're the best, to I don't think I ever loved you. I don't know why I was with you for 15 years. And
Yeah,
it's
it's jarring. It's jarring. And, and thank you for bringing that up, because one of the messages that I want to connect your listeners to very deeply, and please understand that I've sat with so many people on from all sides of the divorce process. I had a woman say to me, this was just through, there's so much rage and anger, oozing out of her as she went through this divorce for a year. And just with working on herself, she said, I have business to take care of. What is that business? I need to go back. I need to go back. I need to make sure that he understands that everything I said, it came from a place of just brokenness, anger, and venom. And believe me, some of the things that were said were just vile, like
yeah.
this is the father of your children. It was vile, but it came from a place of the little girl inside that felt, I have to make you the demon.
Yeah.
You abandoned me. You've triggered all this in me.
Yeah.
So you have to be the demon, because it's too difficult to leave a decent, kind person. But I can leave a demon. Who wouldn't? And
Yeah.
so we have to constantly, as we're processing, a very simple phrase has been part of deep healing for me. I heard these as words many years ago, but then when I took them into my soul, it's been transformative. Hurt people hurt people.
Mm.
There's no option for them. When they're living out that pain, anything is subject to come out of their mouth, any behavior. And to know that creates this buffer zone. Not that it won't hurt you, but you can stand back objectively and say, you know what, if you didn't love me for 15 years, you did a damn good con job. So we know what's happening with you, and we have to put that buffer in between.
It's really hard. I'm just
Oh,
speaking
it's painful.
for my that's what I lived. It's really, really hard to, because I can see it logically. And I think this is a struggle, at least for me, but I think probably a lot of people. I think that my struggles in life where I see things logically, but I feel things. You know what I'm saying? It's like I can
Oh
see
yeah.
logically that, okay, it's not possible that you didn't love me for 15 years. This is not possible. But she said it, and it hurts. And so, I don't know that I mean, it probably, I don't know if it hurts less or where it is on the scale. Unfortunately, there's no measurements for these things,
Yeah.
but I would say that it still hurts. To what degree, I don't know, but it's hard to unhear those kinds of things. And I don't think I will ever, and I don't think it would, I'm not sure that it would matter anyway, but I don't think I'll ever get sort of an apology or an
Yeah.
epiphany from her that, um, that she was wrong. But let's talk about that a little bit, because I think oftentimes in this process we look for that closure, that understanding, and I think when people make these decisions, and I'm generalizing here, but especially in mine, I think it was an emotional decision for her. There was no logic to it, and therefore, I'm not going to find logic in it. But we search for that. What are some things that you can recommend to folks that are looking for that closure, that logic, that understanding of a thing that might not be able to be understood?
Okay, so thank you for that one too. We're into the territory now where we're talking about secondary closure. And I've been as clear as I can on this for years. By the way, I wrote a book, it's called The Stepping Off Point. And in that book, I talk about the denial of compassionate closure.
Right.
And people will withhold that as a punishment as well. And then some people withhold it because they're not emotionally mature enough to provide it. So this is where we can say, you know what? I know I'm never going to get the apology from you. I can provide myself with the secondary closure that I need and I'm looking for. One dynamite exercise that I outline in this book is to take a picture, a hard copy picture. You can use your phone, but usually they'll time out. But I like to take that picture and you sit in one chair and put that picture in another chair. And you really have what I call a full session of closure. It's a spiritual exercise and a psychological exercise, but it brings people a lot of closure. And you say what you need to say. That is a time you may need 1 or 2 sessions. And when you hear me say the word forgiveness, people say, Sheila, I don't know what forgiveness is. For me, forgiveness is I'm releasing you from the prison of my heart. Everyone has a different definition. That's mine.
Yeah.
I don't want you here in my heart as a prisoner, because if I have you here, I have to feed you, clothe you. It's going to take energy to hold you there. Go walk and be set free. That's how I define forgiveness. Because if you're in here, it's very costly. And so you say what you need to be said on your end, and you go through those steps. You take as long as you need. And then I love to follow that up with a key recognition of the gifts that this person came in to give you. Well, Sheila, what gifts? It's done. No. When you sit down and break this down, wow, they taught me this. Through this experience, I became more compassionate. Through this experience, I know how I'm going to choose differently next time. Lots of gifts that any relationship that you're stepping away from, we have to process what they left us with. One of the most painful experiences I had, a relationship ended in a very humiliating way for me. And it just, broke me in half. And through just really processing, oh my goodness, what did I get? Oh my goodness, that will never happen again. You want to talk about a woman who took a deep dive, a look at myself, that confidence, that self-esteem. And I almost needed that experience to kick me in the butt.
Yeah.
You're so much better than this. So these are things to think about, because you have a number of people. You're out here doing a podcast. That says something right there. It's an elevated soul. I'm sure you're not just doing it for yourself. No. You're trying to help folks. So right there, we know that's the mark of an elevated soul. Understand that a good majority of people, they're not there. Yeah. They can't do it. They're not there. And that should not hold you back from the full expression of your healing.
Well, yeah, it's definitely a part of my healing, and I did it not just for me, clearly. Otherwise, I would have just booked a session with you or something.
Yeah.
Instead of recording it for the masses. But it is there's something for me. There's a release of shame. Because I say all the time, shame doesn't survive sunlight. So if I'm ashamed of something, and going through a divorce can be a very shameful thing, that like the whole thing, not only the fact that you went through it, but the reasons and the things said and the consequences and the financial, and just there's so much, just there's no longer, you're not sort of, even though it's very, very common and normal in our society, obviously
Yes.
we're at 50%, right? But even in discussions that I've noticed it, like at in work functions, or I just started at a new company, and it's just like, oh, married, kids, like, no, I'm divorced. And so
Yeah.
there's a shame that comes with it, but it's alleviated when I talk about it. When I tell people, especially as a man, like, yeah, she said this and it really hurt my feelings. Like,
Yes.
and it's as a man, you're almost ashamed to have feelings, right? It's like, you're not supposed to feel what you're supposed to be angry or happy. That's it. And so for me, it's been very, very helpful to talk about these things. But I am curious about something, and it's, I don't mean to put you on the spot, and it'll be sort of
No, it's fine.
anecdotal in a way, but you've been doing it for a while. So what is there any difference in how divorce affects men and women? I'm sure the details will make a difference, right, in terms of who decided and all that stuff. But what are some of the more? I'm sure there are differences, but from dealing with it to recovery, like, what are some of the differences you've noticed between men and women during this process?
Yeah, absolutely. What I've seen a lot of over these last 28 years, a lot of the men that I've worked with, they will come in. It's like, Sheila, I just haven't talked to anyone about this. It's almost instinctual, just cocooning.
Yeah.
And then once they start talking, oh my goodness, it's the dam breaks loose. They're making connections, and it's almost it's not even almost, it's just a cathartic experience for them. And it's that liberation, sometimes the first time ever.
Yeah.
It's the liberation to explore my voice and acknowledge that I have feelings, and they run deep. And just that's why it's so important. I encourage men, particularly, you must have an outlet. Well, Sheila, I'm fine, I'm good. And I've heard that before too. It's like, I thought I was.
Yeah.
And then I got the outlet and started talking, and I realized, and you say, Sheila, I talk about is healing. That's what talking and expressing is.
Yeah.
Particularly if you've had all this energy coming at you, you're this, you're that, you're that.
Right.
We can start to gaslight ourselves.
Mm.
And what I've seen from a number of women that I've worked with, it's the shame is there, but I see women turn things inward.
Mm.
It's a lot of I'm blaming myself, and then it can go between that and lashing out,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, yeah.
and that creates a fatigue for them internally, a fatigue environment for the children. So it all goes back to having healthy outlets to process, and really having the strength to look at yourself and how you're taking that walk. Because some people have a really difficult time, like, I'm okay as long as this
Right.
energy isn't coming at me. What do I do to contain this person over here? And realizing that that's really not your work. Your work is to center yourself and harness enough tools so that even when that tornado is swirling, I have my breath, and I have a deeper understanding of why you need to comport yourself in this way, and keeping yourself centered in that balance and yourself grounded. But, the one commonality I see between both men and women is they all fare better when they put some type of support, informal supports and sometimes formal supports. That's the common denominator.
What do you think is the again, I know these are tricky questions, but I mean, I think they're tricky because I don't know that there is an exact answer. But what do you think is a standard recovery time for something like an unwanted divorce?
Yeah, I'm going to be specific here because it's annoying to me when people are like, oh, there's really no answer. I'm going to give you a range. I think that a healthy time period of coming back into some level of equilibrium would be at about the year mark. And when I say the year mark, it's okay, there's an acknowledgement. we are divorced or divorcing, I've had a chance for reality to settle in with me. And when I say about a year, that's just kind of the, physically calming down, that shock value piece would calm down a bit. And I think if you are feeling anger, rage, depression, despondency intensely, after that 9 months, a year mark, it's time to do a deep reset, and you may need to get some help through that, because you may have gotten stuck in that initial processing phase. And some people just they can't move on without some support. Some can, we can do I love self-help models. But sometimes you honestly need someone to be like, look, let's put a mirror up here. This is what you're doing to yourself. This is how you can stop, because it can get on top of you.
Oh yeah. No, I think you can sometimes, especially as a man, if you're not processing the emotion of it, I think you can get stuck very, very easily. So man, do I agree with that. And I see it all the time, unfortunately. I don't know what women get stuck with or what their process is like, but men, we get stuck in this. Two things: either very, very angry or very, very just distraught. And I have a Facebook group. There's almost 7,000 men in there, and I see this on a regular basis. It's either I am really angry or I am so distraught that I don't even see a future. And sometimes I'm not sure. I try to give them tips and things, but sometimes I'm not sure, especially the anger one. I think I understand a little bit better, because I think it's just a default and it just covers a lot of hurt, and they're not dealing with that. The sadness one, the no hope, I miss her so much, even a year or two later. I don't understand exactly what to tell. I mean, I always try to tell them, listen, make sure you are in therapy, make sure you're doing things, make sure you have to be active in this sort of recovery, quote unquote. But what are some things you recommend to folks that are just sort of stuck in this longing?
Let me speak directly to the men that you support. I hope you find value in everything we're talking about here, but lean into this one. You will find a tremendous amount of emotional freedom and healing. It'll put it on turbocharge if you do one thing. Please remember this: resist nothing. Do not. What can place a man in mortal combat with himself mentally is going down the rabbit hole of hooks. What do I mean by that? Let me just play it out for you. Walk with me on this one.
Sure.
I miss her so much. I miss her so much. I gotta be strong. I wonder what she's doing now. I can't. I have to. No, I gotta buck up. Oh, but I miss her so much. See, that's a hook, and you're gonna go back and forth and back. It can take a day. It can take a couple years. But when you get yourself in this mode, yeah, I miss her like hell, or I miss him like hell. I do remember those wonderful nights. This is very painful for me. It is a raw level of acceptance. What happens when you stop resisting it and justifying and going around the bend? Right next to that, it opens up this territory of what I call, you're in the area of healing solutions. I accept it. Yeah, I'm looking right at it. Okay. What can I do for myself in this moment? It's the fight. It's the mortal combat that holds us. But as soon as you yep, this is what it is. I'm ashamed. I'm pissed off. I can't believe it just like magic. It opens up. Yeah. And so you can say, what's next? And this is, it's a skill set. It's spiritual, it's clinical, it's all of that. But if you can get these folks you support into that piece, you're talking about freedom and liberation on a high level. Because what's happening, they fight with it. That's what despondency is. That's what the anger is. It's a mortal combat. Yeah. Does that make sense? Because you can soothe yourself when you're coming into that, hey, I don't resist it.
Yeah, so it's a matter of leaning in to it, especially particularly. I get more um concerned, I guess, for some reason, or at least baffled to how to help with the guys that are so distraught. I miss her. So you're saying it's a matter of sort of leaning into and acknowledging that, yes, okay, I miss her, and that's okay, and then sort of
Yes.
going
Yes.
down that rabbit
So
hole of
yeah, right. It shifts the physiology, it shifts the mind, body, and spirit into its immediate adult self-soothing. It's a complete shift in paradigm instantly. It's the fighting of that and everything it brings up that tanks a person. It really, really is. I've had men, they'll say, they'll hear it, it's like, oh, is it too abstract for me? It's like, just sit with it and try it. Sheila, all this stuff came up. And whereas I would just before just ruminate, and it would go in a spiral, I stopped. I got in my spot. I found my chair, like you said, and I just owned everything. And I didn't fight it. I let it come in and come up. I let myself feel it fully. It was scary at first, but I was done with it in that moment, and I could go on and do something else. It comes up again, I do the same thing, and I feel like I have some power and control in my life. And so, you got to watch that combat, because it takes you places that are quite frightening and can be unfamiliar, and better to just go into the technique that will help you stay level and grounded and give you some emotional regeneration.
Yeah, I mean, it can be scary, as you said, and difficult, because I don't think men, we don't, that's not what we do, right? We want to fix it. How do I fix it? What do I got to do? Tell me what to do to fix it, instead of just sitting with it, which is
Right.
counterintuitive. It's like,
It's counterintuitive.
especially as a man, I want to fix it. How do I fix it? What do I got to do?
It's counterintuitive, and I get that. And it's, well, Sheila, what the hell is that going to do? Sit with it, give it a shot,
and
you'll see. And it's literally just letting it to say, yeah, all of this is true for me in this moment. All of this is coming up for me. I have rage right now. Yeah, in my head, this is what's going through. And you see that is the quintessential method of pure process, is when you allow yourself to feel all of that, sit with it and feel it. That's how it passes through you. And not staying stuck right there. That energy is passing through you, and you're creating the perfect environment for it to do just that. When you do this, that's when it's a block. You're actually blocking it.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't agree more. It's so foreign, but so true. I just think and I think a lot of times I think to myself, like, the way we're doing it as men, the suicide rates are through the roof. Including those of men that have been through a divorce. And so I start to think about, well, whatever we're doing isn't working. And that man up, get over it, move on, go date. It's not working. It's not working. So I think we have to be open to, I know I was and am, to other ways, other things. There's and not for nothing, but some of this stuff is scientific. Like, we're talking about how the brain works. We're not just talking about some willy-nilly or some
there's science behind it.
Yeah, for sure.
There's science behind these bodies of work. There's science behind the power of zero resistance, acceptance, and commitment models. It is empirical data that is powerful. I live those models. Hundreds of people out there, and hundreds and thousands that are introduced to this daily. Oh my God, this is exactly what's been missing for me. And you get to the point where you drill this stuff down, and you see in real time, oh my God, I'm literally responding. My chemistry is different. I remember some years ago, someone was like, it's an interactive retreat. This is bullshit. This is whatever. This is, and there was a time I would have just, oh my God, what is going on here? But just through the culmination of that work, being able to, in the moment, so as far as you're concerned, this is,
Yeah.
is bullshit. Your
Right.
relationship is bullshit,
Right. Right.
and you see yourself respond to others, your environment, because you have a system to process all of this that flows through us in real time. And that's really what people need, is the hands-on, tangible tools and
Yeah.
drilling it down. It's not magic. You
Yeah.
have to apply it. There's a
Yeah.
turnaround time,
Yeah.
but then you step into a completely different arena in terms of your life and keeping it lifted.
Yeah. Man, Sheila, this has been awesome. Two things we'll cover. The last question, and then of course we want to find out how folks can get get in touch with you, or purchase your books and all that good stuff. But before we get to that, I want to touch on the last question that I ask everybody,
Yeah.
which is, what words of wisdom would you impart to a man who's just starting his divorce journey?
Okay, so this is such an important question, and I wrote down what I wanted my last words to be, and please lean all the way into this. Number one, sometimes success means giving yourself permission for a fresh start. All right? A fresh start can really be the success itself. Okay. Um, I'd like everyone to insist on finding the positive message, the silver lining in what has happened and what's going on in your life. Insist on that. Find the positive meaning and message and tether yourself to it. Live it out every single day. Also, love cannot be denied. If what you want is a fresh chapter of love, if that is what is in your heart, then be that. Walk, just be love, and it's coming to you. Get rid of the toxicity, the negativity, the hate, all of that. And I can tell you what, love finds love. It's no other way around it. And lastly, most important, please, gentlemen, keep an open mind, okay? Your love match may not look, walk, talk like anything you thought. I wrote this article many years ago, when it's called "I'm in Search of Mr. Goodbar, and I want him to be chocolate." And I'm married to a German, 6'3", nothing that I would have ever, it just wasn't on my radar. I'm like, this is my type. This is my type.
Right.
This is what I'm looking for. And life is, there's a sense of humor. You're making these plans, and I'm as happy can be, because you're going to have to keep an open mind out here. And you will see, with a flexible mind, a loving heart, everything's is going to come up roses.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. Man, that was really awesome. That might have been one of my favorite ever words of wisdoms. Thank you so much for that one.
You're welcome.
How can people find you and your books and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so you can check me out on YouTube. I make a fresh video. I take you on a walk. I do a pre-talk, and then we go out to different forest preserves, and I just walk and talk about life, relationships.
Nice.
So that's Sheila Robinson-Kiss, The Lift, on YouTube. My books, they're not coming. You have to save yourself. That's on Amazon. I'm doing another big print run on The Stepping Off Point. Joy Shows Up. All of them are there. And then later this year, the book Pulled. It's called Pulled. That's coming out. It's a book about, we're pulled in all these different directions. Here's what you can do to help yourself. So that's a little about where you can find me. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so very much for doing this. I really appreciate it. We'll definitely have you on again. And, just I'm so thankful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, take care.
You too.
Thank you so much for watching and/or listening. Since my separation in July of 2019, I have done an incredible amount of work on myself. I've had many different therapists, life coaches, and went through different programs. I've taken all that I've learned and put it into my own program called Forged by Fire. If you are interested in having me help you navigate your divorce, please hit my website, risingphoenixdivorcecoach.com. I look forward to working with you.